Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I am Rena Vacone, the founder and CEO of PassionFit, as well as the host of Women Lead TV's Women, Wellness, and the Workplace, sponsored by the Connected Women of Influence. And I'm very excited for our latest episode. And today I have an amazing guest. Her name is Sandra Jaros, and she is the head of customer care excellence at Gusto. And she does a lot of great work for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society as well. And we have a great history together. We worked together at Yahoo and Google previously, and she had nominated me for some volunteer work for a campaign for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So we've got a lot of history, and I'm excited to welcome her. So welcome, Sandra, to the show.
Thank you so much, Rena. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. So I would love for you to start off by telling our viewers a little bit about yourself, your career background, any fun things you want to share personally as well.
Sure, I'd love to. Most of my career started in the learning and development space. I am from the Midwest, and I started my career in training back when I was a call center rep in the mutual fund industry. Got my start in training, and I loved helping new employees get comfortable in their job, ramp to proficiency, and really learn what they needed to do to be successful in their roles. And for about the first 10 years of my career, maybe a little bit longer, that was what I was doing. And I expected to continue in my career in learning and development. And then I got a job with a entertainment company you might be familiar with named Netflix. And while I was there managing the customer service training program for them, their customer service, training program at their call center, they determined, this streaming thing might be taking off. It might be bigger than DVDs someday. So they figured that they needed to outsource. And while we outsourced our training program to one of their BPOs, I learned how to outsource, and I learned all about outsourcing to vendors and how great that work is. And I made a pivot in my career after that to vendor management and outsourcing. And from there, my career sort of took a left turn from learning and development into operations, working with vendors, and continuing that route that I'd started in call centers 10 or 15 years ago. And I work a lot with call centers around the globe. I work with agents who are starting out their careers, whether it's in a call center in the US or around the world. And I get to continue with training teams because I have a readiness team that gets agents ready to do their role. But I also work with customer service teams internally as well, including client relations, client retention. And it's a really great blend between what I started in training and having a hand in operations today too in customer service, which is a huge passion of mine.
I love it. What a phenomenal background. And to think back then when you were at Netflix that it would turn into what it is now. I mean, it's incredible. So to have said that you were there from the very beginning when it was a DVD media company is pretty incredible. And I know personally, again, you did amazing work in the training and development areas at both Yahoo and Google, where we connected. And I think training and development is so important. And since we are talking about wellness in the workplace as well, I don't know if you have any thoughts on why making sure that employees are getting that sort of learning, development, training in different areas can help with their engagement and well-being as well. And we'll get into some of the strengths-based stuff next as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we're seeing at my current company, I work at Gusto right now. We're a SaaS for payroll for small businesses. We bring in employees who are usually at the beginning of their careers to work in our customer service organization. And they are learning a lot. They're learning about payroll, they're learning about our tools, they're learning about IRS regulations. It's a lot to learn. And what we have found is if we can simplify that for them and make them feel empowered and enabled and really understand what they're doing, they're going to have a longer time with us. We're going to be able to retain them longer, and we're going to make them feel more satisfied in that work as well. If we can tie them to the goals of the company, we can make them feel like they're part of the company and they're part of our mission. Our mission is to help people understand the economy flows through payroll. We are empowering small businesses, and we want to make sure that our new employees feel that as well. And the first year of their employment with us is critical. So I actually have a team that is responsible for what is the first year of Augusti employment? What is the experience? And so we're looking at making sure that in that first few months where we're onboarding them
Mhm.
is a really good experience. And so part of that is, do you understand our mission? Do you feel like you're part of our mission? Is the initial training you get simple, or does it feel really complicated and complex? And so looking at that and making it easier for them, we see a direct correlation to how long they stay with the company.
Mhm. I love that, and I think that's really important because what you're doing is you're setting the culture, kind of right from the get-go for those employees, so they really do, like you said, feel like they're a part of the mission. They feel like they can be engaged and get the proper training so they can be successful. And my guess is that would also really help a lot with loyalty and retention down the road. Working in corporate wellness for so many years, that's something that a lot of companies will tell me is that and I, definitely consult to them on the importance of setting that culture from the beginning and making sure that everybody does feel like they're a part of it and part of something bigger than themselves. So I love
Mhm.
that. So tell us a little bit about how you personally and professionally use strengths in your life, Sandra.
Yeah. Back when I was at Yahoo, I was fortunate enough to become a certified strengths coach through Gallup, and I've been able to keep that tool in my bag throughout my career, and I manage through strengths for my own team and
Mhm.
for myself. But I've also been able to do some workshops, some seminars, and just some presentations for our managers within our organization. A couple of
Mhm.
weeks ago, I went to New York to do an offsite for one of our teams and do 3 hours as part of their offsite to help them understand their strengths as a team, their strengths individually, and how those work cross functionally. And if you're not familiar with what Gallup strengths are, Gallup really understands that when managers encourage employees to use their strengths and talents to achieve a goal, individual engagement improves, as does team performance and the company's business metrics as well. So, focusing on what people do well instead of what people have to improve naturally improves employee performance, employee well-being, and business performance. So it's a development tool that you can use, and the more you use your strengths, the stronger they get. And it's just a means of tailoring talent to task and improving performance. So one of my strengths is positivity. So being able to actually manage to people's strengths is very natural for me anyway.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that's why you and I have, we connected early on in our careers and have stayed in touch for so long. What I am also a Gallup Clifton Strengths coach, and I leverage that in my work with Passion Fit as well. Positivity is also one of my strengths. So great minds think alike. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's a really great way to allow, employees to have that sense of self-confidence, right? And security.
Mhm.
And when they do feel successful in their jobs, not to say that they can't work on things that are maybe weaknesses, you can always improve. But if the primary focus of your job is in an area where you can excel, you're just naturally going to be more motivated and you're going to want to
Yep.
keep growing. And to your point, that does help the bottom line, if you will, of the company. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And you know this because you're also a certified coach. No two people can have the exact same strengths. I think the chances of that
Right.
is 1 in 33 million, which I think is fascinating.
Exactly.
Because yeah, it really shows that everybody is unique, and not only for individuals, but as you know, when we pair teams together and people with complementary strengths, it's just going to make the team perform better overall as well. So I love that. And you,
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
one of the things I love about that team strengths too is just the awareness of what the team strengths are. Knowing what strengths exist on your team automatically improves the performance of the team. You don't
Mhm.
have to go out and find, if your team doesn't have focus on their list of strengths, you don't have to go find that. You just have to know that your team doesn't have that. Or you have to know that somebody has it in their top 10 and you can leverage that because you just have to reach for it. But just the awareness of what the team's strengths makeup is is what makes the team perform better. And I love that. Just knowing what they are is naturally going to make your team perform better.
Absolutely. And I even think for managers and leaders, right, when they know the strengths of each of their direct reports, that's going to help them manage them better and lead them better. And, as you know, with Gallup, they often talk about well-being of employees really comes from having meaningful, even just weekly meetings with their managers, where their manager is looking at them as a whole person, not just a means to an end, not just an employee, but a whole person who does have different strengths, who does have different interests that they apply in their personal and professional life. And when a leader or manager can connect with their employees on that level, that also really helps with their overall job
Yep.
satisfaction. So I
Yep.
love that. So you, in addition to being, trained in Gallup Clifton strengths, you are also trained in radical candor. And I think that is amazing that you have two approaches and two philosophies under your sort of toolkit. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about how you use radical candor in your job at Gusto and kind of how it is different and similar to Gallup Clifton strengths.
Yeah. Radical candor actually grew out of Google. Kim
Yeah.
Scott is the author of this book and of the concept of caring personally to challenge directly. And it's just giving feedback to people that you really care about because you know that they are capable of doing better, of growing, of implementing the feedback that you have. But I really, again, credit Netflix with my feedback muscle. The culture at Netflix encourages everybody to give feedback all the time to everybody. So working at Netflix, you get feedback on a daily basis from your peers, from your down level, from your up level. It's just a muscle that they have really honed well. And I think that it's a muscle that more businesses need to get better at. So the book goes through the different quadrants of radical candor and the of feedback rather. The one you want to be operating in it is radical candor, showing people that you care personally so you'll challenge directly. But the quadrant that most of us operate in a lot of businesses is um, ruinous empathy, where we're not giving each other feedback because we're thinking, oh, you know what, Rena's just going through a lot right now. And I'm not going to point out to her that her work product has slipped a little because A, she probably knows, and B, I just don't want to burden her with this. Well, there's a lot of examples in the book that show, you know what, Rena might not know. And it's not a burden. I'm actually doing a greater disservice by not pointing it out to her because if I notice and I haven't shared it with her, that's where I'm failing her. And
Mm.
so if I'm a manager of somebody and I'm not sharing the feedback with them that they're not meeting my expectations, I am not doing my job. But the most important part of radical candor is showing that I care personally about you. And
Mhm.
that's why I'm sharing the feedback. And so the other two quadrants are below the line, and I don't care personally about you. And this is where it gets really icky, where I'm either manipulative insincerity and I'm talking about you to somebody else instead of to you, or
Mhm.
it's obnoxious aggression and I'm talking about it in front of everybody, including you.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
radical candor is the notion that I'm just I'm caring and I want to help you. And so on top of strength-based management where I'm building on your strengths and I'm working towards you, it just becomes a really lovely management package where I know what your strengths are, but I'm also seeing some areas in which you can improve. And I really believe that you can do it. And that's why I'm telling you.
Mhm. Yeah, it really is it's very complementary to the strengths-based approach. And how
Yeah.
would you say that that also contributes to wellness overall for that employee?
Oh, first of
So
all,
many.
if you're working in an environment where this isn't happening, it's lonely. You don't know what you need to improve on, and it's anxiety filling. I've been in environments where you're not getting feedback and you just wonder if I'm not getting any feedback at all, well, I can just assume I'm doing great. But if I'm not getting any feedback, nobody's perfect. And so you have to assume that there's just something not being said. And is it because they don't care about me or is it because they're not paying attention to my work? And
Mhm.
if I'm not working with my strengths and you're constantly pointing out things that I need to do better, that right there is going to produce a lot of anxiety as well. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of articles out there right now about loneliness at work. Right
Yes.
now in the Harvard Business Review, it's the cover. We are still lonely at work. And in an increasingly remote, increasingly hybrid environment, there's a lot of things that we can do for that. Understanding each other's strengths and giving each other feedback are two very easy things to do there.
Absolutely. You're right. And I think that it can be the make or break in terms of a positive, healthy culture or a toxic culture in the workplace.
Mhm.
It's sort of not sharing anything at all has its own issues. But then how you share it, and to your point, how you pair it with the strengths. Usually, in management training, we would always learn, okay, always start with a positive, right? And share one positive thing and then maybe the developmental thing after that, so that you're not just coming at them with all of their weaknesses, but you are addressing them, but also
Yeah.
letting them feel confident that, okay, I'm doing some things right, but maybe these are the things that I need to improve upon. So I think that
Mhm.
that's a really good point. For you,
And
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say with radical candor, you're not always going to like everything that you hear. And you don't have to. Sometimes you have to hear things you're not going to like. I heard feedback years ago that I didn't like, but now I'm understanding. First of all, they were looking out for me and they were giving me feedback I needed to hear. And it didn't even catch up with me until now. Like, yeah, that was painful to hear, but they were telling me because I needed to know it and I can accept it now. You're not always going to like it, but sometimes you really do need to hear it.
Absolutely. And I think those managers that have the heart to tell you those things, they obviously believe in you and they have your best interest. They want you to succeed, which is why they're telling you that in the first place. If they didn't
Mhm.
care, then that's probably why they're not saying anything, because they don't have a long-term investment in you as an employee and a member of their team. So I think that's a
Yeah,
really good point.
yeah.
Yeah. So, have there been any challenging times in your career or your personal life where radical candor or Gallup Clifton strengths have helped you?
Oh, yes, many. Radical candor, for one, is just a playbook for when you have to have difficult conversations. It goes right along with crucial conversations.
Mhm.
Um, for one thing, if you've also listened to Brene Brown, clear is kind. So when you're going into a conversation where you know that you have to tell somebody something that they are not going to welcome, or
Mhm.
that they are not going to, as I just said, appreciate, you
Mhm.
can slow down the conversation by reminding them, I know that you're capable of doing the expectations for your role, or I know that you are the person. One of the things that my manager often says to me that makes such a difference in my day is, I still choose you.
Oh, wow.
You are the person I want in this role. So even if she has to say something to me, or if I'm going through something that's really difficult, like, yes, this is something that didn't go as we planned it to, or I need to redirect on this, but I still choose you for this role. You are still my person.
Mm.
And that's why I'm giving you this feedback. That's why I need to let you know that there's this perception, that you need to work on. But I think those are such powerful words to share with our teams, because they know then that the feedback you're giving them comes from that place of, you're my team and I've got your back, but this is something we need to address.
I love that. That is very, very powerful. And I think in this day and age, when you talked about loneliness is at an all-time high, there's a lot of uncertainty, especially since the pandemic, in the job market, and with companies doing a lot of restructuring and layoffs, and a lot of people have lost their jobs, especially in various industries like the tech industry and the mortgage and financial services industry. So when you do get some developmental feedback, a lot of employees then immediately feel like maybe their job is on the line. So I
Yes.
love that your manager says that she still chooses you, you're still her person, so that you can really be open to the feedback and not be fearful, and then take it and have it help you to do better. I think
It
that is
allows
so
it
powerful.
allows for some vulnerability, and it allows for you to say, okay, thank you for that, because I'm very concerned about this thing that I have to do next, or this thing that just happened. And did I do that right? Can we unpack this? Because I'm concerned about my next steps in this area. And
Mhm.
so it goes both ways. I can have the conversation with my team, I can have the conversation with my manager,
Mhm.
and really open up and allow some real work to be done then. But feel like you're in a really safe space because you know that person cares about you personally. We're making business decisions and we're all here to make the business successful.
Mhm.
But when you know that someone cares personally about you, it gives you a safe space.
Absolutely, because ultimately the business is still made up of people who are
Yes.
humans, who have lives even outside of work and have feelings and have health to look out for as well. So, yeah, I'm a huge believer in, those types of soft skills, and having that sense of EQ as a manager or leader is so
Yes.
critical in the workplace. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to switch gears for a second and talk
Sure.
about your incredible work with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. You had nominated me at the time, they called it the Woman of the Year Silicon Valley campaign. I think the new name is Visionaries of the Year, which I
It
love.
is. Yes.
And it was one of the most rewarding experiences for me to fundraise for
I'm
such a great
glad.
cause. And you were such a great coach and mentor to me during that whole campaign. And so I'd love for you to tell everyone a little bit about your work, obviously, with the organization and your personal connection to it as well, because it really is a touching story.
Oh, thank you. I got involved in 2012, maybe, through Team in Training, which I know you also did,
Yeah.
because my nephew was 5 years old when he was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer, but he's 20 now. He was 5 years old when he was diagnosed, and he's now 20 and in full remission from cancer. But it
Great.
was it was a very rare form of cancer. And the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is the largest nonprofit funder of leading edge research for every type of blood cancer: leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma, other rare types of blood cancers. And they make thoughtful investments in blood cancer research, patient support, family advocacy. They are on Capitol Hill advocating for research and treatments and better treatments. They have an amazing Dare to Dream project, which is working to make sure that children do not have the same treatment that adults do, because for many years we were just treating adult or children with the same treatments as adults, and they don't have the same bodies, and it was very, very toxic on their little bodies. So LLS has also helped advance 70% of the blood cancer treatment options approved by the FDA since 2017. So just amazing work that they do, and billions of dollars invested in cancer research. So I'm very proud of the work that I've done with them for the past more than 10 years. I started out as a athlete with Team in Training, and
Mhm.
then I myself was also a candidate for what was then Woman of the Year and is now Visionaries of the Year. For the past few years, I've been a co-chair of the leadership committee.
Mhm.
What we do is we find amazing community leaders such as yourself to join our 10-week fundraising campaign. These leaders compete against each other to see who can raise the most money in 10 weeks. And people raise $50 to $100,000 or more in 10 weeks, all for this amazing cause. And we're so incredibly grateful for everybody who joins us, either as a candidate or team member for one of these candidates, a sponsor. And it's just an incredibly uplifting campaign to be a part of. There's always an honored hero. Usually it's a child in the community who has had or has a blood cancer and is either thriving, surviving, or fighting right now. So I'm incredibly proud to be part of the Silicon Valley chapter of LLS and be fundraising, finding candidates, and running this campaign right now.
I love it. I'm so proud of you for the amazing work that you've done. And again, it was an honor to be a part of it when I did it. And at that time, I think it was around the pandemic, so it was a really interesting time, or right before it. I think
You were right before. Yeah, you
before,
were, I
yeah,
think,
20.
very fortunate. You could still do events and get people together. The next year was very interesting because they got started and then it was locked down, and
Yeah,
Was
that's right. Yeah, I remember.
right.
I think the ceremony and the awards and everything, it was in February of 2020. So it was
Mhm.
between 2019
Oh, yeah.
and 2020. So it was right
Yeah.
before the pandemic. But yes, I
Mhm.
mean, I agree. It was such a positive, uplifting experience. And it's amazing when you are fundraising, you get to see the generosity of your community and your family and your friends and businesses that want to support. And I know for me personally, having those honorees, both when I did team in training with my husband, we both ran the Portland Marathon
Yeah.
with team in training, and when I did at the time, Women of the Year, now Visionaries of the Year, that honoree, it just makes it more real and it makes you want to strive and work a little bit harder and a little bit harder to try
Yeah.
to fundraise as much as you can for their futures. And so I love that they have that as part of the program because it really makes it real and it makes you and others around you really feel like, okay, I can make a difference in these children's lives. And that's huge.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I always tell prospective candidates when they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to do this, I say, you are going to get way more out of this than you put into it. And it's going to be an experience that lasts your whole life. You're always going to remember this. And people in your life are going to surprise you. You are not going to expect the people who come forward to support you to do so. Like there's going to be people who are impacted by blood cancer that you don't realize have been, and they're going to come forward and surprise you. And just the experience of meeting with those families and being a part of this, and you're always then part of the LLS family. And it's also incredible how many treatments for blood cancer then go on to help other cancers, help breast cancer, help colon cancer, help liver cancer, because there's
Mhm.
just so much from blood treatments, blood cancer treatments can go on and become solid tumor treatments later.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
You're right. That's so true. And I remember when I was fundraising, I had a lot of people support my campaign that had been impacted by other forms of cancer as well. Many
Mhm.
obviously had a connection to somebody with leukemia or lymphoma, but to your point, I mean, it's all cancer research at the end of the
Mhm.
day, and we still
Yeah,
have so much work to do and so much more findings in medical science to be able to beat all of these different diseases. But to have
yeah,
platform and an organization of this magnitude, it gets us one step closer. So I absolutely love the work that you do. I have so much respect for it. And I'm so honored that you had brought me into it to allow me the opportunity.
absolutely. You
Yeah.
were a natural choice.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Particularly as we tie it back to wellness, a lot of what they're doing too is working on earlier detection. Because when you think about it, it's not a tumor that you can notice. It's something that you get sick and then they find it in your blood. And sometimes it's really hard to figure out what it is. So the
Right.
more that they can focus on earlier detection and wellness, um, obviously that benefits everybody.
Absolutely. 100% agree. I know we are just out of time, so I wanted you to just share with our viewers how they can find you. Again, I can speak firsthand that Sandra is an incredible woman, so intelligent, so caring, and has made huge strides in her volunteer work as well as her professional career. So if you want to talk to her more about Radical Candor or Gusto or Gallup Clifton Strengths or LLS, how can people find you, Sandra?
Thank you so much, Rena. Find me through LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. Sandra Jaros on LinkedIn is the easiest way to find me. So thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope that our conversation was helpful for all of our viewers out there. Wish you all a wonderful Monday. And thanks again for tuning in to Women Lead TV, Women, Wellness, and the Workplace, brought to you by the Connected Women of Influence. Thank you.
Thank you.